Because if we
Like,
switch it to Europe in particular, right? The whole debate over corona bonds and basically off-balance sheet spending to allow greater macroeconomic impact. It seems to be now the ECB is kind of like a shit version of the Fed. They'll do some guaranteeing of a floor for prices, and then you're on your own. That's pretty much it.
and the consequences of that are in a union which, in some senses, if you take the whole eurozone, comparable to the United States, pretty lamentable from a political point of view. It doesn't work that well, right? I mean, if your choice is between that version of capitalist governance and the American version, I think the answer is which one you pick is pretty evident, right? The sustaining aggregate demand is an important function, and divvying it up across the complex, highly divided zone of the eurozone is something that Eurozone economic governance fails at, and the symbol of that is the stagnation of the Italian economy.
So let's focus in on Europe. You just mentioned the Italian economy being deeply problematic and, in a sense, impacted by bad Eurozone governance for the past 20 years by some readings. Are the Italians off? Is this the breaking point, or is it just going to continue as it did through the crisis as it did last time?
My sense is this is the very unhappy version of the Mad Max improvised capitalist governance. I mean, it's a very unhappy marriage. It's a very unhappy dysfunctional machine. I'm not sure that it breaks off because, I mean, even with Greece, I was pretty persuaded that the costs of a Grexit were exorbitant for a country the size of Greece. For an economy with the sophistication of Italy, with the balance sheets of the Italian financial system denominated in euros, it would need some wizardry of financial engineering to get them out of there without a complete meltdown, which, given the weaknesses of the Italian economy right now, is the absolutely last thing they need. So I don't think, an Italian exit from the euro is even a remotely plausible politics. And I mean, certainly in the previous iteration, the last time that the Eurosceptics ran hot in Italy, when it actually came to it, they backed away from that. Yeah. Furthermore, the powers that be in Italy intervened quite heavily to ensure that, as it were, whatever government arrived was one that they thought they could work with. I think it's very unlikely that Italy will crash out, but I think what it means is that we continue on in an increasingly unhappy way.
But does that mean the politics get worse? So if we're currently looking at 30% unemployment in these in all economies generally, you can imagine the Italians being in even worse shape. I mean, this is a catastrophe. If the demands for the schwarze Null, for the black zero, come back at that point, and demands for another round of austerity, which seems likely to actually happen, and that will be catastrophic politically for these most affected economies, surely.
Yeah, I mean, I think Jens Weidmann may win the prize, if not the prize, at least the runner-up prize for the first announcement of that politics. So the head of the German Bundesbank has already said, okay, fine, spend now, but we're going to have to do consolidation later. And that is a catastrophe because Italy's debt to GDP ratio will be up in the 150s by that point. So really, there isn't any realistic alternative but to park that on the ECB's balance sheet and leave it there, short of some imaginative European federal fiscal fix, which no one seems to have any appetite for. There is a catastrophic politics of austerity that could lurk down the road, and that would, I agree. I mean, the political fallout from that could be ruinous.